Hey guys, this is Alex Ramsey, host of Night of the Batman, with a review today of The Dark Knight Returns Part 1. This movie was made by Warner Premiere, and it has the same creative team that was behind such shows as Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League, both the original and Unlimited series. So it's safe to say that they've had a lot of experience with DC characters, and recently they started doing these movies that they put out, I think, every year. This one is split up into parts because of how good the story is and how they wanted to stay faithful to it and not just shorten it down, because I think they have like the studio mandates that they have a short time of an hour and 30 minutes or some ridiculously short time for an animated movie like that. So anyway, this movie is based on the book of the same name, or the graphic novel, by Frank Miller. It was made in the 80s, around the same time when Watchmen came out, and Frank Miller was inspired by the Watchmen book. Around this time in the 80s is known as the grim and gritty era, when superheroes were getting more serious, when the whole perception of what a superhero was changing and shifting to something much different and much darker. And this story basically, according to Frank Miller, and this is his own words, that it was up to him basically to get Batman his balls back. I agree with that 100%. This story has influenced a number of works, both in movies and in TV after this, and also just in comic book stories. One example I can think of right off the bat is in The Dark Knight Rises. They take numerous cues from this book, like the whole idea of Batman faking his death. They do in The Dark Knight Rises, and also many other different things they take from this. The idea of Batman being basically retired for a long time, then coming back to face a new threat, is taken directly from this book. Now, an interesting fact about this book is that it was made before Death in the Family, that storyline, and yet in this, Jason Todd is dead, and that's the reason why Batman quit, which I found very interesting. And it's never really specified why. I guess I'll get just to the summary now, so I'm giving you guys just the general background. Okay, so it opens up on Bruce Wayne. He's in a race car driving around that looks very similar to another car that Batman fans will recognize. And he basically is trying to go as fast as he can, and the car won't take it. And he's basically just, since he no longer has Batman and he's retired, he's trying to do anything basically for thrill, and is not afraid of dying, really, because his life ultimately, at this point, has no meaning without Batman, and it sort of leaves his life sort of empty, leads him to drink a lot. After the car crash, we lead to him having dinner with Commissioner Gordon, and them talking about just how, and at this point, Commissioner Gordon knows that Batman and Bruce Wayne are one and the same, and they even discuss this at one point. After he leaves, he starts flipping through channels, and the other side, Batman, pushes its way out, and he once again becomes Batman after repressing it apparently for a long time. He shaves his mustache, which I think is a cool scene, which they also do in the movie as a sign that he's becoming Batman again. And he goes out and fights some of the mutants, and with mutants are a gang of kids that are the new threat in Gotham, and unlike anything Batman's really faced before. In this, they cut between Joker, who's catatonic at this point because there is no Batman for him to face, and Two-Face gets his face fixed. He's also in the mental home by Dr. Wolper, who's one of those crazy pop psychologists I'll get to later. So he gets healed, and then Two-Face regresses, and Batman has to take him down. After this, he keeps fighting with the mutants, and eventually gets Cary Grant, who wants to be Robin, and actually dresses up like her. She helps him out after he gets beat by the mutant leader, and he takes her in as Robin. After this, he goes out and they fight more mutants, and it keeps on going through the story, and eventually he sets it up so he fights the mutant leader after he's captured, and basically wins, and the rest of the mutants become the Sons of Batman, which I think is cool. And it ends on Joker coming out of his catatonic state and becoming himself again. Now, this movie is amazing. The voice acting, everything is really good. I guess I'll go to the pros now, and let me just warn you, there are a lot. Yeah, like I said earlier, this movie stays incredibly close to the source material, which I really like, and even adapting like shots from the book, like some of the still images in the book, it adapts it into animation, which I think is really cool. The animation also is great. It has a number of things I really like. It has calls back to year one with Gordon and Gum, because he's trying to quit smoking, and then I believe in year one he chews gum or something like that in order to quit smoking. I'm not sure about that 100%. Even though this was not, I don't think he meant to do this. I just sort of thinking about, since Jason Todd is like the main center point of this, just like his death is the driving force to why Batman ended up quitting. When Batman's getting beat with a crowbar by the mutant leader, it reminded me very much of Death in the Family when Jason Todd got beaten by Joker with a crowbar. Yeah, this story had a lot of impact on the characterization of Batman and stories and everything since. Like, another thing, for instance, they've adapted this like into the new Batman Adventures, where they did like a brief scene of this, and also the Batman took elements of this, even referencing the name for one of their episodes. The book is very cinematic, and with its shots and just how it looks, which makes it one of the most perfect books to be adapted into a movie. The pacing of this movie is great. It keeps it good, fast paced throughout, never really slows down. And every single minute of this movie, I was pretty much excited for, because I was like, oh, here comes this scene, or here comes that scene. I can't wait for part 2. Yeah, the movie is very good. It almost doesn't look like their other stuff. You can tell that they spent a whole lot more time doing this than they did their other movies, and that a lot more love went into this. One of my other things I like about the book is how the movie/book addresses stuff like pop psychologist with Dr. Wolper, who sort of just said he's all wrong the whole time. He blames Batman on these villains' problems and thinks that they're okay. And it's like, he's one of those people that tries to heal criminals but doesn't do it all the way, just sort of does it for the celebrity of it, sort of thing. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. The music in this is really good. I really like the music. It's very orchestral. It expands on scenes in the book, adding more depth to some of them, and just making some of the scenes last longer, and also just changing certain things around which it doesn't really take away. It actually makes some of the scenes better. There's also, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things I like is the similarities of the race car that he drove in the beginning to sort of, it looks like one of the old school Batmobiles. He actually drives a tank in this, and again, the influence of this is really great on other stories like Batman Begins. He drives a tank, and there's also other things that this book addressed, like political things, like how it glorifies criminals in this. News has a tendency to do that, to make celebrities out of these criminals that are on TV, and how news is sort of always in your face now and never stops really, and trying to scare people, and also just how entertainment and everything is just sort of in your face all the time too. And yeah, and just the way news channels were going then is sort of relevant to how they're going now, where it's more about just trying to entertain people than it is about giving them facts that sort of happened over time. That was happening then too. Yes, and the whole movie is excellent. The voice acting is great. Some of the scenes, again, and some of the characters look spot on to their comic counterparts. And also another thing I forgot to mention was the similarities, like when he walks into one of the Two-Face's room, it looks similar to in the animated series. Like it has two sides. It has one side that's dirty and then one side that's clean, which is similar to the animated series where they do this sort of the same thing. One of the things I thought was cool and sort of like an Easter egg in the story was when in one of the scenes when one of the mutants walks into the gas station, you see on the comic book shelf, you see Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and Sandman, and a bunch of Alan Moore stuff, which I thought was really cool. Yes, this movie was great. I basically have really no complaints, maybe except for one, and it's more just that's more just like a book thing than what the movie did. I guess the one complaint I would have, and it's just like one little tiny thing, is that there's one scene in here where Batman mentions how the Batmobile got named, and it's inconsistent with how the Batmobile got named in the storyline of All-Star Batman and Robin, which is supposed to be a prequel to this. Well, I guess that's just like a minor gripe, but really that's the only thing I can really think of that's wrong with this story. This is one of my most favorite stories ever of just Batman in general. I think it's like my favorite right after, like, it's even above Long Halloween as my favorite story. It's one of the first ones that I read when I first got started getting into comics, so it has sort of like a nostalgic feel for me too. It's one of the first Batman stories I read, and it was really good. If I were to rate this right now, I would give it a perfect 5 out of 5. This movie's amazing, spectacular, and it adapts everything perfectly. I advise you to go see it if you haven't seen it yet, and I cannot wait to see part 2. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Thanks for the support you've been giving me. You guys are awesome. Subscribe, like, and comment, please. And you guys have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this review.